Welcome to CCBC TV's Arts Showcase, a series featuring performances from the campuses of the Community College of Baltimore County. I'm Monica Otal, Professor of Music and Concert Manager at CCBC. Today's Arts Showcase features the Seth Kibel Kleztet. Clarinetist and flutist, Seth Kibel leads a quartet of accomplished musicians, including Harry Appelman, pianist, Daniel Brown, double bass, and drummer Wes Crawford, in a fascinating and exuberant musical journey tracing the roots of Eastern European Jewish klezmer music in America. The quartet ably combines traditional music with modern and diverse influences.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us today here at CCBC Essex in this wonderful recital hall. I know it's a Friday. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, so it really means a lot that you chose to spend some time with us this afternoon. Thank you. Thanks to Professor O'Tall for that introduction as well. So, yeah. So the type of music we're going to play for you today is what's called klezmer music. Now, the short story on klezmer is Eastern European Jewish folk music, party music. The kind of music that would be played at a wedding or other type of celebration in the little villages or shtetls, as we would say in Yiddish, of Eastern Europe and Jewish Eastern European communities dating back hundreds of years, almost 1,000 years, in places like present-day Poland, Russia, Ukraine, Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, etc. And this music thrived in that part of the world in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. Then, in the first decades of the 20th century, this music was transformed yet again when over 2.5 million Jews traveled across the Atlantic Ocean, primarily between the years 1880 and 1924, and these Jews settled in the New World, primarily in New York, because New York is the center of the known universe. And those Old World sounds, the sounds of the homeland in Eastern Europe, began to mix with the sounds of the new. Early jazz, Dixieland, Tin Pan Alley, and the result in many ways is a quintessentially American form of music reflective of the Jewish immigrant melting pot experience. Now, the word klezmer itself is a Yiddish word, but its etymology, its origins, come from two Hebrew words, klei and zemer. Klei has a lot of meanings in Hebrew. It means instrument, tool, vessel, device, a medium for accomplishing a task. And zemer, more simply, is music or song. Klei, zemer, klezmer. Instrument, tool, or vessel of song. And indeed, the original meaning of the word klezmer in Yiddish referred not to a genre of music, not to a body of work, like we talk about classical or blues or hip-hop or jazz or whatever. No, it referred to the musicians themselves. A klezmer was the itinerant musician of Eastern European Jewish life, who wandered from town to town playing for weddings and other similar celebrations. A klezmer was sort of a scuffling musician. It had a little bit of a derogatory connotation almost. People ascribed to these klezmers, or klezmerim, as the Yiddish plural would have it, some of the same negative stereotypes that people have about musicians to this very day. That were irresponsible, unreliable, argumentative, that we gamble, and that we drink too much. A klezmer wasn't a serious, respectable musician. A klezmer, like I said, was sort of a scuffling musician. And it's only in the modern klezmer revival, the modern resurgence of interest in this music from about the mid-1970s up until the present day, that people have taken this old Yiddish word that used to refer to the musicians themselves and now use them to refer to a body of work, to a genre, klezmer music. Now, we opened with a medley of traditional, what we call freilachs or bulgars. This is just the kind of lively circle dance we would play at a wedding or brat mitzvah, where they put the little kid in the chair and try not to stick his head in the ceiling fan. These freilach or bulgar melodies, like the ones we just played, are written in such a way so that you can just endlessly medley them together, going from one song into another, so that at a wedding or other type of event, you can have that kind of dance, that music going continuously for 20 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes, over an hour if necessary. I often thought that these tunes are written and medleyed together, not so much for the enjoyment of the dancers, because honestly, I don't think they're really paying much attention. It's mostly so the musicians don't get too bored playing the same song over for 45 minutes. We're going to continue with another traditional klezmer melody. This is another one of these tunes that goes back hundreds of years. Who knows who first wrote it? That great Jewish composer Anonymous, or Anonymous Steen. This is entitled Otazoi, which translated from the Yiddish into English means that's the way. And this is a slower kind of dance, still in 4 or 2. It's called a chassidl, which I like kind of to think is sort of a drunken Russian swagger, which may be somewhat redundant. Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, in the early decades of the 20th century, this music really moved across the Atlantic Ocean and settled in the New York metropolitan area, specifically the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And once it did, naturally a lot of blending and a lot of musical synthesis started to take place. And there's probably no better example of that than this next song we're going to play for you, which some of you may recognize. It's a tune called By Mir Bist Du Shane, which in 1937 was recorded by the Andrews Sisters and became, upon its release, the biggest selling song in recorded music history up until that date. Now, that record, of course, has been eclipsed many times since, but it was the biggest selling song that had ever been recorded up until that time. Now, I want to briefly tell you the story of By Mirabus Duchesne, because it's a fascinating story behind this song, and it speaks volumes about American music and American music in New York during this time period. Our story starts in 1932. By Mirabus Duchesne is originally composed by the famous composer of the Yiddish Theater on 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, Sholom Secunda. He writes it with all Yiddish lyrics by his collaborator Jake Jacobs for a Yiddish theater production called I Would If I Could, to be sung by the great star of the Yiddish theater, Aaron Lebedev. Okay, that's 1932. In the audience at one of the performances of this musical, this Yiddish theater production on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, is an African-American vaudeville duo by the name of Johnny and George. They like to go to the Yiddish theater. Well, okay, they actually have an ulterior motive for going to the Yiddish theater. You see, they're a vaudeville duo, and when you're in vaudeville, you need some shtick. You need gimmicks. And one of their gimmicks was they sang songs in a lot of different languages. So they decided at one point, you know what, we should learn a song in Yiddish and make it part of our act. So they were actually going to the Yiddish theater to look for the right song to learn and make part of their act. They hear the song by Mirabus Duchesne, they say, aha, that's the one. They go backstage, talk to Sholom Secunda, he gives them the thumbs up, and this African-American vaudeville duo learns this song all in Yiddish. Now, Yiddish, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of a dialect that blends Hebrew and German and was kind of the language spoken by most of this Eastern European Jewish community. So they learned this song all in Yiddish. Now, Johnny and George perform all over, but one of their most frequent venues is the Apollo Theater in Harlem. So fast forward now to the spring of 1936, they're performing at the Apollo Theater in Harlem for a mostly African-American audience, but who else happens to be in the audience at one of these performances? Sammy Cahn, the white Jewish Tin Pan Alley songwriter. Sammy Cahn hears them sing this song in Yiddish, and he says, oi, where did this come from? So he goes backstage, talks to Johnny and George. They direct him to Sholom Secunda down in the Yiddish Theater District. Sammy Cahn tracks down Sholom Secunda and purchases the rights to By Mirabus Duchesne from him for $50. A source of much consternation to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Sholom Secunda to this day. Sammy Cahn at this point in time is wearing many hats in the music business, but one of them is as an A&R man, artist in repertoire, basically a record producer for Decca Records, one of the largest record companies in New York. And he's been charged with producing this still as of yet unknown trio of singing sisters from Minnesota, the Andrews Sisters. And he decides to have them record this song, all in Yiddish. The higher-ups at Decca Records hear about this, call him into their office and say, are you out of your mind? You can't have them record this song in Yiddish. And Sammy Cahn supposedly argues, goes back and forth. Finally, a compromise is reached, whereby Sammy Cahn, against his own better judgment, agrees to sit down with his frequent collaborator, Saul Chaplin. The two of them write a set of English lyrics for By Mirabus Duchesne. The Andrews Sisters record it, and as I mentioned earlier, it becomes the biggest selling song in recorded music history up until that point. I made the rather questionable analogy on the spur of the moment yesterday that in many ways it was the Despacito of its time, in that it was a massive, massive hit, but it was a hit that really came about through a rather peculiar series of events that involved the blending and kind of mainstreaming of ethnic culture. I mean, Despacito started as this reggaeton tune and has found its way through the auspices of such unlikely people as the Biebs into the American mainstream. Anyway, back to our story. So just to summarize, Sholom Secunda, Yiddish Theater, 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, Lower East Side. Johnny and George, Apollo Theater in Harlem. Sammy Cahn, the Andrews Sisters, Decca Records. Seth Kibel Kleztet, CCBC Essex. Here's By Mirabus Duchesne. Thank you. I realize I have been terribly remiss in that I have not introduced the fine gentleman making music with me on this stage today. So in no particular order, over here on drums and percussion, originally from Blacksburg, Virginia, yes, but currently residing in Silver Spring, Maryland, obviously an accomplished drummer and world music percussionist who plays in a multitude of styles and has toured all over, all different types of music, but also a very well-respected educator in his own right. On drums, Mr. Wes Crawford. Behind me on the bull fiddle, or the double bass, depending on how well you were raised. Originally from Knoxville, Tennessee, currently residing in Centerville, Virginia. He wins the award for furthest travel today. Mr. Daniel Brown. On the lovely Steinway 7-foot that he personally brought here from Silver Spring, Maryland. Originally from the suburbs of Chicago, currently residing in Silver Spring, Mr. Harry Appelman. And as for me, I'm yet another of a cadre of New Yorkers in exile here in Baltimore. I live out in the Randallstown, Pikesville neck of the woods. My name is Seth Kibel. Thank you. We're going to proceed now with something a little mellower. We're going to play a Yiddish melody, a Yiddish folk song. This is actually a lullaby originally. It's called Oifen Pripitchik. And it was actually originally written to teach Jewish children the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, or aleph-bet. We're not going to sing it for you, and you should be thanking us for that. But lyrically, each word begins with the next letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Anyway, this is called Oifen Pripitchik. One, two, three. Oh, yeah. All right. This klezmer music would influence the greater American musical landscape in many ways, up to and including our current times. But one way in which this music had a significant impact on the overall history of American music is that many noteworthy American composers, songwriters, and musicians grew up hearing this music. We're the second generation of these Jewish immigrants in New York. Probably none more famous than Mr. Jacob Gershowitz, better known as George Gershwin, who indeed grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, hearing this music. This was the sound of his childhood, and a certain klezmer flavor informed a lot of his work. So we want to, do at least a little George Gershwin for you this afternoon. So many great songs to choose from, but since we are in the fleeting days of summer, and I like to hold on to that as much as possible, we're going to play the official theme song of summer, which came from George Gershwin's crowning achievement, his magnificent 1936 folk opera, for lack of a better term, Porgy and Bess, which lyrically dealt with African-American life on Catfish Row, but musically was some of the most Jewish-sounding music he had ever written, including this song, This Is Summertime. We're gonna do it a little differently, though, I think. Sure. Take it away, Wes. Thank you. That's Wes Crawford on the drums. Thank you. Well, look, we can and will play some more music for you, but this is nominally supposed to be an educational experience. So we want to take a few minutes now and see if anyone has any questions for us about us, our backgrounds, our instruments, the music we've been playing, really anything I've talked about or anything I haven't talked about, because Lord knows there's plenty I've left out. So, having said that, the floor is open. Don't all raise your hand at once, please. Oh, wait, up there? Is that a question, or are you just stretching? Oh, stretching, I thought so, okay. There we go.
I'll ask a non-educational question. When's your next public concert we can go to?
Well, honestly, I don't fully remember. And we're all, I said this yesterday, as professional musicians, we're all very musically promiscuous. So we are always working. I mean, we all work together a lot, but we also work with various groups and various combinations and different, subsets. We're all very incestuous, musically speaking. So we're all over the place. I know personally, I don't know my full schedule offhand. I know I'm in Dulles, out by Dulles Airport tonight. But you can always check my schedule at www.sethkibel.com. Shockingly enough, that domain name wasn't taken. One of the benefits of having a less than common name. So anyhow, yeah. So we're all over. Yes.
Not a question.
Uh-oh.
Point out that your cousin is here.
I know, that's right. That's right. Another Kibel. That's right. Excellent. There aren't many of us. Yes. You know what Kibel means in Polish now? Oh, you don't know this? It's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's toilet. It's slang for a toilet. No, it's a shit. People were telling me this for a long time. Kibel is the Polish equivalent of barrel maker, Cooper. But now in Poland, it's like the slang term for a toilet. It's like going to the John, going to the Kibel. If you do a Google image search for Kibel, you'll see me, toilet, 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 me, toilet, toilet, toilet. It's great. Okay. Now, you're not stretching now. You actually have a question. Okay, go ahead. How did we all met? In jail? No. As I said, musicians tend to network, and we all work with each other in various combinations. So, of these people, I've probably known Wes the longest. Wes and I have worked together in various bands, sometimes my own group, sometimes other people's bands, for probably about 15 years now. At least, maybe more than 15 years. Harry, I've known similar circumstances, probably about maybe 10 years or so. I think I first met you in that the Natali project. So, and then Dan is more of a recent transplant to the area. What, did you move to this area about 2 years ago? Yeah, and a mutual friend of ours who knows Daniel really well, emailed me, said, hey, I know this great bass player who plays jazz and klezmer. You should get to meet him. So, that's how I met Daniel. So, yeah, we've all known each other quite some time. All right, there was another hand. Sir? Well, okay. I'll give you the short answer to that question. Well, the really short answer is because it's awesome. The slightly longer answer is the two primary voices of klezmer music throughout its history have been the violin and the clarinet. And I think that's largely because those are the two instruments best suited to mimic the human voice. One thing we associate with klezmer is all these types of vocal inflections, the laughing, the crying, or cracks as we say in Yiddish. The chirping and squawking and schmears, etc., etc. Now, you can do those kind of sounds on a violin. You can do them on a clarinet. You can't really do them very well on a whole lot of other instruments. You can't do those sounds too well on a trumpet or an oboe or, God forbid, a bassoon. So while you do find other instruments being used in klezmer, there's no such thing as a right or wrong klezmer instrument, the clarinet and the violin are clearly the dominant ones. And clarinetists and violinists to this day argue over which is more important in klezmer, the klezmer or the violin. You people all look very smart and well-cultured, so you guys know it's the clarinet. All right, one more question. Yes, sir. How long I've been playing music? I've been playing music since, about 34 years. I started clarinet when I was 9 years old, about yay big. Playing ever since. All right, so let's see. We've got a little bit of time yet. Let's do New Waltz and then, let's do Dehaser Bogart. All right. We're going to do one kind of long song, long song to end with. But before we do, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, thanks to Professor O'Tal and the entire music department here at CCBC for having us. Thanks to Gene running sound for us, making us sound good. And Phil, who's been our overall tech supervisor and supervising the broadcast and all this stuff. And I'm sorry, camera people, I don't know your names, but if you want to, just take your fingers and wave them in front of the camera real quick for the people watching at home. So thank you kindly for that. If anyone's interested, we do have CDs, business cards, mailing list, all that stuff. You can see us afterwards. We'd love for you to take us home with you. Once again, on piano, Mr. Harry Appelman. On drums, Wes Crawford. On bass, Daniel Brown. And my name is Seth Kibel. We're going to do one more song, but thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this unique performance by the Seth Kibel Kleztet. If you would like to attend a Music Forum concert, please note that each Friday during the fall and spring semesters, the Music Department of CCBC presents Music Forum concerts at 12:20 in the Recital Hall of the Arts and Humanities Hall on the Essex campus. These concerts are an integral part of our students' education, and all of the concerts are free and open to the public. For more information on Music Forum, please call 443-840-1521 or visit our website at ccbcmd.edu/performingarts. I'm Monica Otal. Thank you for watching CCBC TV's Arts Showcase.